with a sense of quality, wanting to have it be a quality thing. Even his handwriting is beautiful. His signature is beautiful. You know, like when he learned to speak English, he wanted to really learn how to speak it colloquially and be able to tell jokes and all that kind of stuff. So, but as a youngster, he loved acting. He loved martial arts. He was also the intramural Western boxing champion at his high school. He loved cha-cha. And I think he probably thought that his trajectory at that time was probably going to have something to do with acting. You know, he had this passion and drive for martial arts as well. But what ended up happening is when he was a teenager, he had quite of a fire in him, as you can imagine, and he had a temper, and he was, you know, always sort of like wanting to know things like what is glory and victory, and why do I want it, and I want to prove myself, and the only way he could think to prove himself was through challenging people and having fights. And he had these rooftop matches that he got involved in, and they were that, you know, putting him in touch with a bad element with like the tryouts and gang element in Hong Kong and the police and all of this. And so at the age of 18, there was sort of a pretty serious altercation where someone was injured, and his parents said, enough. You need to leave.
And they were pretty well to do. I think his dad was a singer.
He was a comedian in the Chinese opera, and he was an actor. So.
Oh, okay. When I heard opera, I thought he sang.
No, not really. And my father and him did movies together. And actually, right before this, my father just finished his first major starring role in a film called The Home, which was actually submitted to the Venice Film Festival and all of that. But then he had to get out of town.
People were angry, and
yeah, and you know, he had been born in the United States, so if he wanted to claim his U.S. citizenship, he had to return before he turned 19. So that was the perfect place to send him. He was in trouble. He was never really that engaged in school.
Self learner, not engaged in school. That makes sense. No, it does make sense.
Yeah, because, and so I think he came around to the value of education somewhat, because when he came to the United States, he did get his GED and he did enroll in the University of Washington, but he didn't graduate because he had things to do. The thing about him was he was a doer, which is a part of his real beauty and message.
So did he start to experiment with vitamins, eating different kinds of food? We were laughing on the way up because I had seen in the documentary, I think, well, you were in it, where at one point he would take raw meat and milk and eggs and a bunch of other things and throw them in a blender, blend it up and just take it right down. And the people describing it, it was pretty funny to watch their faces. But maybe that gets back to the curiosity.
Yes, I think my father was, as I said, like completely curious, completely into learning new things, and he was a self-experimenter. You know, like he experimented with his experience, and he got into all of that health and fitness stuff really strongly after he had that plane crash in Oakland. I don't know if you...
Yeah, I know that the detail, well, I don't know it's the specific details, but the idea behind it was he had a school, martial arts school, and he was teaching everybody. And so
yeah,
there were people mad.
It was sort of the San Francisco, Chinatown, old guard, the traditionalists. My father's school was in Oakland, where he was part of a more non-traditional crowd, and he did teach people of all backgrounds and races and genders and ethnicities and all that. And they didn't like that. He was also talking about ways to change some of the martial arts techniques that he was doing, which you would never do. I mean, you're not the,
That's
you know,
sacrilege.
sacrilege.
It's been around thousands of years.
Right. And so they were mad about that also, and they sent a challenge. They issued a challenge to him, and they brought over their champion, and they fought in my father's school, and my father won. But in about 3 minutes, my mom was
Your
there.
mom was there.
Yeah, my mom was there.
Because there was different reports. I guess after it happened,
Yeah.
there were people who didn't want that outcome to be announced that way,
Yeah.
and they put out their own stories.
Yes, there have been other people's stories, even to this day, that continue to be put out about saying, oh, that's not really what happened. But my mom was there. She's like 8 months pregnant with my brother at the time. And, you know, she's described the fight in detail to me. And the thing of it was that they started off, and first they wanted to have all these rules, you know, like, oh, no punching to the eye, no this, no that. And my father said, no, we're fighting for real, for something that really matters. There's no rules. It's just if you give up or you get knocked out, then it's over. And so he came out of the gate immediately, and I think pretty quickly the other guy was like, oh, this guy's good, and he's out to get me. And he started to go backwards, and then my father was coming at him, and then he took off and started running, and my father had to chase him, and they were like running around like a sort of like a Three Stooges act, like running around.
Oh,
my father's trying to like punch him in the back, like trying to get him to stop. And he finally, the guy actually tripped a little bit, so my father was able to get a hold of him and get on top of him, and he was punching him, and then finally the guy said, I give up. And the interesting thing about all this is that afterwards, my mom said everybody left, and he was sitting outside of the school on the curb, and he had his head in his hands, and she was like, what's the matter? Why aren't you happy? You won.
8 months pregnant.
Yeah. And he said, that fight didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. I had to chase him. It was really tiring. My traditional Wing Chun training didn't really prepare me for non-traditional setup and moves and rules. And he realized that he was not in great shape. The only thing that he ever did, and what martial artists did at that time, was train technique. They didn't cross train. They didn't, you know, go jogging or lift weights or do any of that stuff. And so he was in shape. I mean, he was always in good shape, but he was.
And now he's sprinting for 3 minutes.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so at that moment in time is when he said, I need to change my approach. And he created this little miniature tombstone. He had a friend make it for him, and he had written on it, in memory of a once fluid man crammed and distorted by the classical mess. And that was sort of like his monument to die to his traditional ways and to be reborn into a person who's more fluid and who can change with whatever is presented to him.
Now that seems like one of the most unique moments in the world,
yeah,
in history.
Yeah.
And yet I'm listening to it, and wherever society is going at this point, it seems to me everybody may feel a little like that, where we're just confronted with all this new technology and things we've never seen before, and we have to change.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to talk to you.
Yes, no, well, change is ever present, but also, as you say, like, the world is changing so quickly. And my father had a quote about change, which is, to change with change is the changeless state.
That's deep. That's deep. That's exactly the way I should be thinking.
Yeah.
And probably we all should be thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's very in line with his idea about being like water, right? And this idea that we just talked about of fluidity. Like, the stream is running all the time, it's going by all